So, Mr. Lowe, the young journalist began, switching on his recorder, you claim to have experienced something truly extraordinary. Yes, Daniel nodded, his eyes reflecting deep fatigue. It was beyond comprehension. Please, start from the beginning, the journalist urged, leaning in. It all began with my passion for photography, Daniel started, his voice trembling with the weight of recollection. I always sought beauty in the most unexpected places. Abandoned buildings, wild forests, deserted streets. One day, while shooting in a forest outside the city, I stumbled upon an old house. It looked as if nature had reclaimed it. A sagging facade, windows like blind eyes, and a doll. A doll? The journalist echoed, raising an eyebrow. Yes, Daniel confirmed, his voice dropping to a whisper. A small, dusty doll lying by the doorstep. Something about it drew me in. I took it with me. And what happened next? The journalist inquired, a chill creeping down his spine. That's when the oddities began, Daniel continued, his hands nervously fidgeting with the edge of the table. Cameras left on overnight captured movement in empty rooms. At night, I heard whispers as if someone was calling my name, and then the doll started moving on its own. This sounds like a scene from a horror movie, the journalist remarked, attempting to mask his skepticism. I thought the same. Daniel sighed. I decided to return it to the forest. But the forest, it had changed. Paths vanished, trees seemed to reach out to hold me back, and in the shadows, I saw figures, small, like doll-sized shadows. And did you manage to return the doll? The journalist asked, leaning forward. No, Daniel shook his head. I couldn't find the spot where I found it. The forest wouldn't let me go. In a panic, I ran and found myself in an abandoned subway. A subway? How did you end up there? The journalist was taken aback. I have no idea, Daniel admitted, his voice quivering. The tunnels were empty, but I felt eyes watching me. Then I saw them. Hundreds of dolls scattered on the tracks, sitting on benches, standing in wall niches. Their eyes, they glowed in the dark. This is unbelievable, the journalist whispered, unable to look away from Daniel. I thought so too. Daniel let out a bitter chuckle. Until one of the dolls spoke. It said, "You took her. Now you're one of us." What did you do? The journalist's heart raced. I ran. Daniel's eyes widened with the memory. But the tunnels turned into a maze. My flashlight flickered, shadows morphed into monsters. Then I found myself in a hall, surrounded by dolls, as they pulled me toward a dollhouse, inside of which was my apartment. Your apartment? The journalist repeated, disbelief evident. Yes, Daniel nodded, and inside was that same doll. It said, "You will never leave us." Then, I woke up here. This is an astounding story, Mr. Lowe, the journalist said, turning off the recorder. But you understand it's hard to believe? I know, Daniel sighed, his eyes dimming. But sometimes reality is scarier than any fiction. The journalist stood, shaking Daniel's hand. Thank you for sharing. I'll do my best to tell your story accurately. Be careful. Daniel's voice was barely audible. Some stories are better left untold. The journalist nodded and left the room, leaving Daniel alone with his memories. Some doors are best left unopened, Daniel whispered into the void, and some dolls are best left untouched.